Welcome back, Conference USA Media Day. Once again, we start with the West. Tomorrow morning, we will get to teams from the East. And joining us now, Southern Miss. Coach Jay Hobson joins. Coach, good to see you again.
Thanks for having us, man.
We're going to talk to the coach first, but I will introduce the players. First of all, there's Jordan Mitchell, a tight end, coming off a best season, 37 receptions, and Rakim Booth, the outstanding linebacker from Southern Miss, kept preseason All-Conference USA. Picked second in the West. Does that matter?
It doesn't. Everything's about where you finish, not where you start. Again, and that's what we're focused on. We were close last year, but we've got to find a way to find a few points, and that's our challenge. It's where we finish, not where we start.
Let's talk about last year, because you won 3 of your last 4 games. The only loss came to UAB, and you were snubbed by a bowl. Did that hurt?
Yeah, it certainly did. The thing that was tough, and again, you have to take care of on the field, but, we lost 1 game in overtime, 1 game by 1 point, one game by 2 points. We were literally 6 points away from being 9-2, and I think maybe 15 or 16 points from being 10-1. So if you're talking about basketball and RPI and quality of work, I felt like, we're only 2 touchdowns away from being 10-1, but yet we were 6-5. So the bottom line is, I think that's the challenge that we have, is we've got to take care of it on the field, and you can't afford that 1 point loss or that overtime loss. You got to find a way to get that W.
Now, you return one of the most experienced teams in Conference USA. How have you concentrated on not allowing anybody to be complacent because of that?
Well, I don't think that's a problem with our football team this year, because it hurt at the end of the year last year. I think guys are focused. I think, and again, I really like our football team. We're a Southern Miss football team. These guys to my left are no exception. They're hard workers. And we're a junior, senior football team, so that's kind of fun, Ron, when you have that experience, that leadership. Our guys are working hard, and we understand what we have to do and the challenges ahead. Conference USA is a tough conference. Every week's a battle. I think we understand that. So, again, but it's fun to have an experienced football team, because at least those guys kind of get it. They've been around the track a few times, and that's what I see in our work ethic and our workouts.
Well, one of the things that stands out, and I think you would agree with this, you have to improve your running game. 112.6,
no doubt.
No Ito Smith, the great players in the past.
No doubt.
Was that a focus in spring?
It was a focus in spring, and that was one thing that kind of attracted me to Buster Faulkner when we brought Buster in. There was a lot of similarity. At previous places I'd been, we'd run for almost 300 yards a game, and our terminology was very similar. But we want to throw. We want to be a balanced football team. We're not a football team that's going to run or just throw. But I felt like being balanced, Ron, was critical to our success. And and everybody, it's no secret in football, you have to be able to run to win championships, because there's going to come those plays in a game where you've got to get those tough yards.
Talk about the offensive line, because you had 7 players that started multiple games back in 2018, but not one of those 7 held down the same position for more than a half a season.
Yeah, there's a competition going on in our offensive line, and I think that was one of the things we talked about in recruiting and in the offseason. We brought in 3 or 4 guys, and there's competition. And, one thing about it, whoever the starting 5 are, I think they're going to be the 5 that come to the forefront. And, again, but I see those guys working hard. I see those guys competing hard. And, again, I think that's just going to make us a better football team.
Jack Abraham, your quarterback, threw for over 2,300 yards, but there was a little competition
no doubt
for quarterback.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Well, and that's something we want to create, is competition, because you become better with competition. But Jack, again, did a great job for us, got hurt probably week 7 of the season, and Tate Watley, a true freshman, came in, and Tate started 3 or 4 games and did a tremendous job. I felt like we were at our best down the stretch when we were playing both of them.
Right.
Again, they're both 2 talented young men. They both compete hard. I think they're both well received in the locker room. Again, but we feel like we're blessed at that position, because we feel like we have talent. Jack's a talented guy, throws the ball extremely well. And Tate's one of those guys that, again, not only can he throw it, he can run it. He's kind of a blood and guts, kind of got a little Favre-ish mentality with that. So, again, we're blessed. And I always say Jack kind of reminds me a little bit of Nick, but it's
wow.
We've got 2 quarterbacks, and we're blessed to sign 2 really good young quarterbacks. So we feel good about the position.
Nick Mullins, by the way, former Southern Miss player. But are you a 2-quarterback guy?
No, well, ideally you're 1, but again, if a young man deserves to play some, I think he's got to play. You know, it's one of those deals where you're not just if we're going to appoint a starter, and again, right now, whoever our starting quarterback is, and at the beginning of the season, and Jackson, a young man that started most of the season last year, he's going to be the starter. However, again, if a young man deserves to play, we'll put him in. So I'm going to let those two compete. I just think competition makes you better, and I'm a believer in competition. And again, I think that's what football and this journey is about.
I'm going to get to you guys, okay? Don't fall asleep on me. I promise I'll get to you. I'll treat you to dinner tonight or something, okay? Defense. You have SEC size at a number of spots. One coach I talked to, I said, describe their defense. He said they're war daddies. Your defense is going to be good.
Well, we talk about that at Southern Miss. The nasty bunch is who we are. But, again, when you sign on to play defense at Southern Miss, it's a tradition. It's a legacy. It's a legacy that was there long before Jay Hobson showed up at Southern Miss, and it's going to be there long after Jay Hobson leaves. The reality is at Southern Miss, and I knew Coach Carmody, Big Nasty, who started the Nasty Bunch. I've known him since I was a kid, and that's something that I grew up as a child watching Southern Miss, watching the Nasty Bunch, and there's an expectation of play. If you're going to play defense at Southern Miss, you have to uphold that tradition. And that's kind of who we are. That's our pedigree, and you can't. It's when you sign to play linebacker like Rakim did at Southern Miss. You have to understand that's easier said than done. You have to now live it. So again, I think our defense is an older unit, which you always love. I think they understand what they're supposed to be about. But, again, we know each year is a different year, different challenges. So we've got to prepare hard. We can't rest on last year's laurels or the year before. We've got a new year, new challenges, and we've got to be ready to go.
Allowed fewer first downs than anybody in the FBS Southern Miss did last year. Let's talk now to Jordan Mitchell coming off his best season. But here's what stands out. You redshirted in 2017. You didn't play in 2016. So last year really was your first year to play in 3 years. How satisfying was that?
It was definitely a long time coming. I've had to overcome a lot of adversity just with different things as far as injuries and stuff. So it was really just making the most of every opportunity when I got the chance.
What kept you going? I mean, come on. I mean, you redshirt, you get injured, then you have to redshirt. What drove you to keep lifting the weights and running and getting up early in the morning?
I definitely think just my family and my faith, just that ear in my head from my family, just supporting me, just telling me never quit. I mean, Coach Hop also, he preaches life. He's a life coach more than he is a football coach. So I just have that in my corner, and then just having faith in God that everything works for a reason.
Now, when I mentioned the fact that you guys, we look at some of the highlights of the offense, you got snubbed on a bowl. I looked at you and Rakim both, and both you just went, talk about what that felt like when you knew you weren't going to go to a bowl, and how big of a snub was that for Southern Miss?
Well, that was definitely a snub for the whole program, just because that's what we're built on, is going to bowl games, competing for championships. And so my freshman year, I've been to a bowl game ever since I've been here. Mm-hmm. So last year definitely hurt. Going 6-5, being bowl eligible, and not getting chosen, that definitely hurt. So this year, coming up, we have one goal in mind, and that's winning Conference USA and also going to a bowl game.
From Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and also joining us now, Rakim Booth, highest graded linebacker last year in Conference USA, as I mentioned, preseason Conference USA. This year, snub of a bowl. You also gave the oh my goodness look when I mentioned that. Talk about that.
It was a big snub, Me myself, I'm the type of guy that just be mad about any loss, and knowing that we wasn't going to a bowl game, they hit hard, and we just used that to fire us the next year to keep going, be better than we was last year.
The pride of the defense, and Coach Hobson said that it's been a tradition at Southern Miss for as long as I've been coming there, which is back in the mid-'90s probably. The tradition of defense, is that something that you had to learn and understand and now appreciate, and that you're passing on to the younger players?
It was something I learned, but I also knew a little bit about it. In high school, I knew about the Nasty Bunch. I knew a little bit of the history of it. And when I got there, it just kind of carried on, learning the system, and then just also I did a little more background check about the Nasty Bunch.
Oh, both you guys are from that area, obviously. So the nasty bunch this year, I told Coach Hobson, War Daddies, SEC kind of size. Do you have something to prove this year on defense?
Oh, most definitely. You know, we never live on the past. You know, we always got to prove something every year. You know, it's a new year, it's a new us, so we just got to keep proving ourselves.
One thing I want to get back to, Coach, you only have about 2 minutes. One of the big losses this year for your team, Parker Schoenfield, you lost him to graduation, the most accurate kicker in Southern Miss history. Tough replacing him, but you got to do it.
It always is. Again, we brought in a couple of guys. We signed a couple of kickers, a couple of punters. So I feel like we've addressed that need, Ron. Of course, like everything, you got to do it when the lights are on. And kicking is no exception with the pressure kicks. But we're excited about our talent at place kicker and at punter. So, again, we feel good about our special teams going into camp.
Well, two things I've been asking all the coaches. The targeting now has to be done by replay, good or bad. Do you like that?
You know, I think as a coaching group in the AFCA, we voted, I think, 129-0 on targeting 1 and targeting 2.
Exactly.
I felt like, and when it's 129-0, I think I speak for all coaches, where we all as a unit think, you know, we probably need to start to differentiate between the malicious, the launching, and sometimes a good form tackle. Sometimes, you know, all of a sudden, I mean, it is what it is. We're trying to make the game safe, so we understand that, and everybody's for making the game safe. And I think when you put 129 football coaches together, we all have that interest in our players. We're all former players, so we all have our players' interest at heart. We're trying to look at a way to make sure that the game is played not only safely but properly. And again, so we'll see how that goes. I think that issue is going to be another debate every year with targeting 1 and targeting 2. But again, we want to do our best job to make sure we're playing fundamentally sound, but also keeping the game safe.
In our final seconds, do you like the transfer portal and the way it's working out?
You know, I think, again, I'd have to say give the coaches a little bit credit. Coach Hobson can't take, but as a group, I think we all were a little bit hesitant of it because we saw what it might do to the student athlete, and I think there's probably been a lot of student athletes left out. And again, I think sometimes we're perceived as guys that just want to get a W, and not. We are former student athletes, so we look at it on both sides of the fence, and I think it's been something that, again, may not have been as beneficial for the student athlete as was once thought.
Well, gentlemen, I wish you the best of luck. Stay healthy this season. Always good to see you, my brother.
See you, Ryan. Thank you.
All right, coming up, the champion, UAB. Next is Conference USA Media Day continues.